A very pragmatic suggestion. How about that? And you're going to pass it out now?
I was just going to keep it, I don't keep track of it.
Okay.
My thought was to get it on the way in, but that didn't work out.
Didn't work out. Okay. If you'd like a cup of tea while I'm doing the announcement or the introduction, feel free to help yourself. Don't be shy. If you were Faceman and you'd probably want to rattle off a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo so you could sort of do, capture the interest and get some sort of unwitting administrator to loan you an aircraft carrier. But in the real world, audiences aren't convinced by that approach. They like someone who's going to give them a real message, something that is authentic. So project number 4 in the Competent Communication Manual, How to Say It, talks about this idea of how we write and craft the words of our speech. Today, Amy Braat is going to take on this challenge. She's a connoisseur of teas, which you can see, and she's going to be sharing her expertise with us today. So timer, please give her the lights at 5, 6, and 7 minutes. And welcome rising star Amy Braat for her speech, The Art of Tea.
The Art of Tea will explain almost everything you need to know about tea, starting with why you should drink it, the history of tea, and covering the different types of tea. It's also the most popular drink worldwide over coffee, soda, and even beer. Tea leaves typically go through a series of steps before they are ready to be sold in shops. They are wilted either under the sun or temperature-controlled oven, bruised slightly, and enabled to exposure to air, which causes the oxidation. After a level of oxidation desired is reached, the leaves go through a process of fixation to stop the oxidation. Lastly, it is dried and packaged. I have a bunch of examples up there. I'll show you later the different types. Now, that was the old way of doing things. Modern ways are with CTC methods, which stands for crush, tear, and crawl. Most loose teas are made this way. It speeds up the process, enables tea to be mass-produced, and therefore lowers the prices. The tea in tea bag form is probably produced with the method. Now, the history of tea. It all started in China, as you figured out. And they also had the plants in India, but they didn't know how to actually grow it. The Tang Destiny in 1618 AD, the tea leaves were steamed and pressed into a brick form, and they were let dry for easy storage. This brick tea was then spread to Japan through the Buddhist monks. This tea they called black tea, which nowadays is called pu'er. There's an example of it out there if you grabbed it. In the Song Destiny, which was 920 AD to 1279 AD, the Chinese started to process tea leaves in loose form because they found out that that's actually a better way to store it. They also started the tea ceremony, which most of you know through Japan, and it is a green tea that they micro-ground and they use straight. Now in China, that kind of disappeared and they forgot about it, but it kept going strong in Japan since it's still here today. In Europe, in the early 1700s, tea was brought over. It actually was brought over by the Dutch since they had a very strong a lot of ships. And it started in Amsterdam and then was imported to the other countries. France and Italy started drinking it, but it didn't last very long. Italy really liked their coffee, so they went back to that. And French socially liked to drink wine, so tea didn't stick around for long. Where in Britain, since their King Charles II married Catherine, and tea was very popular where she comes from, tea was brought over and became a very important part of Britain. The British East India Company, which is the commercial arm of the British Crown, started importing tea from Canton, which is in China, that yielded tremendous profit. It is said that tea filled with empty ships on the way back to Britain after exporting fabrics from India to China in the first plague. As one can see, it was in fact in interest of Great Britain to promote tea to the British people, which explains one of the many reasons why tea is so ingrained in the British culture today. China was determined to be self-sufficient, so they would only take silver in exchange for their tea, since England wasn't in any of the silver-producing countries at that time. They talked China into taking opium. And as you all know, opium is a serious narcotic side effect that China didn't like their people having. So that put England into a very interesting predicament, since they don't have anything that China wants, and all their people now are dependent upon this tea. They decided to send Robert Fortune, a botanist, to China to steal the secrets of tea. It was no easy task, as China was pretty much still close to the world. It was said that he was dressed in Chinese robes, wore a fake pigtail, and spoke Mandarin, a language that was already fluent. He was fluent in, and obviously they spoke in China. He went unnoticed for a few trips on the inland, and he stole tea seedlings and plants from China, and then took them over to India and taught them how to cultivate the plant so that they could actually make well-grown tea. It was one of the greatest acts of corporate espionage in history. The really surprising thing about this is that Britain is not the highest drinker of tea. It actually is, Ireland is second, and Britain is actually sixth on the list of countries that drink tea. Why you should drink tea? There's a lot of health benefits. They have flavonoids, they have theanines and polyphenols, which are your anti-cancer agents. There are 6 different actual types of tea. There's a yellow tea, which is not very common, it's very hard to find. There's a white tea, which is one that's not really, it's not fermented, it's very minimally processed. It's the first buds on the leaf. And we have examples here that I'll pass around. The green tea is processed a little bit, depending on what type of green tea it is. It's not fermented. And the black tea is fermented from, is fully fermented, where the oolong is only 5 to 80% fermented, which is what makes it different. And the pu'er is 100% fermented, or, sorry, oxidized. I'm not oxidized, I'm sorry. The pu'er is the only one that's actually fermented. So they oxidize it, and then they store it and ferment it to give it its awesome flavor. And the herbal teas, which have a lot of health remedies, are not actually teas, but they consider them. Thank you very much.